the defense didn't blink, man. We gave up some possessions early, and sometimes that can put a bad taste in your mouth, but they didn't allow it to spoil the day. They just played one snap at a time, and we were able to get some significant stops in the second half. I thought that turnover by Mike Hilton was enormous.
All right, the Steelers are 3-0. Hi, everybody. I am Missi Matthews. Welcome to the Extra Point presented by Microsoft Surface. I want to introduce you to our panel. A lot to talk about from the victory yesterday, 28-21 over the Houston Texans. Our same crew from last Thursday, former Steelers running back Merril Hoge is on hand. A lot to talk about James Conner, Anthony McFarland getting his first snaps. Also, Arthur Moats, former Steelers linebacker. And who doesn't love the Watt Bowl probably more than Arthur? And Bob Pompeani of KDK TV is here once again as well. So, guys, I want to start backwards. Let's start with that fourth quarter. And, Merril, we'll start with you. What was the most impressive part for you out of that fourth quarter when they really sealed the deal?
Well, actually, there was a couple of things that I thought were very impressive. You know, the way they run the ball to the perimeter, it can look like it's all the same play, but they have a bunch of different wrinkles. There's probably 2 or 3 plays there. There's a counter play, a kind of a sweep play. All of it's trying to get to the perimeter, and they blocked it so well. And when I say they blocked it so well, I mean, the offensive line did a good job. But a guy that stood out as far, especially the touchdown run, was Juju Smith. Juju was always blocking downfield. I don't know if he gets a lot of credit for that, but he did a great job as a group. They do a great job. And James Conner continues to build on complementing all of that. I mean, he became a punishing runner, decisive runner, and those things come together. But there was one play, actually, as I was watching tape, that stood out to me. I thought Ben had his best half and best quarter in this game that he's had all year. You know, the Claypool big run, big pass where he got down to the 2-yard line and fumbled out of bounds, that was actually a called run. So that was just an alert play, you know, so for a rookie to make sure that he's aware that that ball could be coming to him was, you know, really speaks volumes to him. But Ben seeing what the Texans were giving him and taking that big play, you know, that was a play. I don't know if people thought it was a called play. It was not. It was an alert that Ben, because it was a designed run, and he just saw the alert. He saw the corner 9 yards off and gave it to Claypool, and that was one of the big plays in that fourth quarter. So that as a whole really stood out to me as how they end up putting the game away.
Arthur, what about for you? What was your big takeaway from the fourth quarter by the Steelers?
Yeah, well, first off, Merril hit on it, man. That perimeter running, I thought by the offense was awesome. The Texans on film had struggled with the perimeter runs, especially against Baltimore, and it was good to see the Steelers be able to take full advantage of that, especially late in the game. But for me, the thing that stood out to me, man, was how the defense finished their drives, how they finished plays, especially in that fourth quarter. Early on in the game, they were just lacking a little bit in the details. They were just, you know, a step late here, a misplay here. But in that second half, in particular in the fourth quarter, we saw everybody make their plays that had opportunities. Mike Hilton kicked off the fourth quarter with the big interception, and that was when the Texans were driving and having some success. I thought that was huge. And then obviously the two-hit sack, forcing a punt on fourth down. Those were the biggest things to me in that second half, man, with that defense and just how they played with so much more intensity and just ultimately had that tenacity that we love and feel and have grown accustomed to with this team now.
All right, Pomp, what were you taking away from the fourth quarter by the Steelers?
First of all, the defense, and this is a Victory Monday, so I hope you don't mind. You know, you got to bring out.
There we go.
Right? It's
a Steelers bottle, so that's okay.
Yeah, and if they go 6-0, look out. I may not be able to speak when we do this again. No, but I thought it was just the commitment to the run, which, you know, when they're 14-3 down, we've seen in times where they can abandon that. They did not do that. They stuck to it. They knew that was a matchup they liked. James Conner was the feature back, but they combined with a lot of other players in there. I thought that was good. And the defense, to what Arthur said too, was spectacular in that it allowed just 2 first downs. They corrected whatever was going on in the first half, and I'm not smart enough to figure that out. I'll leave that to Merril and Arthur and the guys who can. But whatever adjustments they made worked, and Deshaun Watson did not have down the field openings as he did in the first half. And I think they did not blitz as much. They pretty much just decided to keep him, contained as much as they can. But I thought the defense did a tremendous job, totally different than what we saw in the first half. So commitment to both sides of what their game plan was.
Guys, we have to shout out Mike Hilton. The last time the Steelers played the Texans, he had 3 sacks. That was Christmas Day down in Houston. Yesterday, the big interception that really turned the tide for the Steelers in that fourth quarter. But 7 tackles, 1 tackle for loss, 1 pass defense. Mike Hilton, as Coach Tomlin said, just a really good little football player and somebody that keeps showing up on the stat sheet week in and week out. But going back also, shout out to Vince Williams, guys. 8 tackles for loss on the season so far. He's leading the league. DeMarcus Ware in 2010 was the only player since 1999 to have more tackles for loss over the first 3 weeks. So going back though, Merril, with James Conner, Coach Tomlin even said after the game, guys, I keep telling you and referring to the media that he is our bell cow. We did see some other guys mixed in there. So what are you seeing from number 30?
Well, Missy, I'm going to go back to what we saw last week and the kind of runner he is. He was like this at Pitt. What made him so dangerous is when he plants his foot, he makes a decision, and he goes with it, and he punishes people, and he runs behind his pads. He uses his pads to get blockers off him. He's a great runner when he runs like that. He's not a dancer. That is not his strength. And when the offensive line, anytime they win up front, you owe it to them to compliment them. And I think he's doing such a good job of that, and he's playing to the strengths of James Conner. He's powerful, he's strong, and when he is decisive, all of that comes together, and it becomes a very productive and dangerous running game.
Now, Arthur, in terms of Benny Snell, 2 fumbles through the first 2 games, are you surprised or not surprised the Steelers implemented him a little bit yesterday against the Texans?
Initially, I was surprised, especially after the first time we saw James come off the field. They went to Anthony McFarland Jr. But I did want to tip my cap to Coach Tomlin, Randy Fichtner, and the offensive staff, because they did go back to Benny Snell, and I thought that was good for his confidence. I think with young players, when they have some adversity, if you turn your back on them before they get a chance to redeem themselves, a lot of times it can have a negative effect on their confidence. But with them going back to him, I thought that he really showed up in a big way in terms of protecting the ball. And then also on special teams, he still was showing great effort, had a tackle up there. I believe it was on a punt as well. So for me, man, those are the things that I was really impressed with Benny Snell, responding from the adversity that he's had in these previous weeks.
Pomp, what did you think of Anthony McFarland? He was not active the first game. Second game, he was active but played no snaps. And yesterday, we had a chance to see him for the first time. And he just spoke to the media not too long ago and said, I wasn't nervous. I just knew I didn't know how many snaps I was going to get, but I wanted to take as many opportunities as possible and really seize them.
For someone who hadn't played, Missy, ever before in the NFL, right off the bat, a 20-yard run, those are not easy to do, but he showed a lot of what the Steelers liked when they drafted him. Also, I thought there was a 3rd and 2 call where he was in the game, and I didn't think he was the best option at that point for the game. But clearly they like him. They want to see what he can do with him. It adds to the repertoire of that backfield. And while I still believe James Conner is going to be the guy who's carrying the ball a lot more than anybody else, and he should based on the last couple of games that we saw. He got better as the game wore on, but I think this committee approach, so to speak, will help James Conner be fresh, hopefully stay healthy, and then it could benefit everyone in that running back group.
All right, guys, we are going to take a short break here on the Extra Point. When we return, we'll talk much more about the Steelers' defense and how they shut it down in the second half. Don't go anywhere.
Houston Texans, they lead by 1. They're at the 43 of the Steelers. They're 5 of 10 on 3rd downs in this one. Fourth quarter. Here's the shotgun snap for Watson. Steps up in the pocket. Now he wants to run. Now he's flushed out right. Rolling. Throws it against his body. It's intercepted. Mike Hilton has the ball at the 20-yard line.
After the game yesterday, the Steelers win over the Texans. Mike Tomlin, TJ Watt, everybody pointed to that Mike Hilton interception of really helping turn the tide for the Steelers. And guys, when you look at what they were able to do in the second half, I want to know who spoke at halftime and what they said to the Steelers defense, because the numbers were very, very good in terms of what they were able to do in terms of stopping Deshaun Watson and their offense. 0 points allowed, 2 first downs allowed, 51 total yards, only 8 yards rushing. The time of possession, 9:49, 3 sacks, 1 for 5 on 3rd downs, and of course, as we've talked about, that interception by Mike Hilton. So, Merril, what do you think was said to the Steelers defense during that halftime break?
Well, if they were going to address anything that they were doing wrong in the first half, it's a lot of their zone concepts. You had people jumping out of position. You had jumping underneath routes. That's why the big voids were down the middle. Linebackers were doing that. The corners were doing that. So as far as structure in their zone coverages, they weren't very disciplined. When you look at what the Texans did, some man concepts, they picked them. That's how they got people open when they played man. Now, if you go to the second half, and the biggest adjustment they made, and I guarantee you this was not in the conversation, the Texans didn't have the ball very much. I mean, that honestly is a credit to the offense. Now, what the Steelers did in the second half to change that up is they didn't have busts in the secondary. Their pressures won where they didn't win in the first half. So they got pressure on Deshaun Watson where they didn't do that the first half. And they cleaned their zone coverage up. Linebackers quit jumping underneath routes. Corners quit jumping. A curl route and letting a go route go behind them. That was the mistakes they made in the first half. And I'm sure that was talked about, but the offense not allowing them to have the ball very much was a complete game changer. And their pressures won the second half, whereas in the first half, the Texans did a good job picking it up.
Now, Arthur, after the game, Coach Tomlin said it took the Steelers a little bit to adjust to what the Texans were doing in the first half. Were they doing anything that you would have anticipated them not doing going into this game and watching them on film the first 2 weeks?
No, honestly, the Texans stuck to who they were. I thought Merril hit it right on the head, though. The two things that I saw in the first half, they just weren't finishing their rushes. They were chasing after Deshaun, but he was still able to extend and create on the fly. But then in the second half, we saw, the interception by Mike Hilton, we saw that play 3 times in the first half with Deshaun Watson scrambling. It was just this time, Deshaun throws late into double coverage. Mike Hilton makes him pay for it. Then we saw, as the second half progressed, like I said, them not being on the field as much. But when they were, to it with a big sack on third down. Then on the series prior to that, TJ Watt getting a sack on first down, making them have 2nd and 22, and then 3rd and 22 from there. It was just a bad situation for that Texans offense. Zone coverage was a lot cleaner, a lot crisper. Everybody was more disciplined in the second half. That first half, they weren't sluggish or sleepwalking, but they weren't on the details. They didn't operate with the minutia that they needed. And then on the 2 passes, in terms of the 1 touchdown pass to Randall Cobb, that was just him beating a guy. And yeah, that was it. Other than that, there wasn't anything that was mind-blowing, nothing that they did that was so new this week. I just thought that in the second half, they operated with more detail with their work.
Bob, I want to get your take on that and also throw this fun fact out there for you. Pittsburgh has allowed only 162 rushing yards over its first 3 games. That's the fewest by the Steelers since the 1980 merger. So what did you see from them in the second half in terms of containing Watson, like the guys were saying?
Well, I just saw they were a wall up front. I mean, you've gotten, that front 7, I believe, is the best in football. And if they do what they can do on a weekly basis, I mean, you hold Saquon Barkley to 6 yards, that Ben Roethlisberger has more rushing yards than he did. Who would have ever thought that would happen? And I thought yesterday, David Johnson's their feature back, couldn't get it going. They were just stout at the line of scrimmage, which will serve them well this week against the Houston Texans, the Tennessee Titans, no doubt, because of Derrick Henry and their willingness to continue with the run. But I just think that was just a tremendous effort up front, winning the line of scrimmage, and it makes things a little easier on your secondary when you do that too. And I think, at that point, they have to become one-dimensional. So you affect Watson by stopping the run game as well. But, overall, those numbers you mentioned, those are off the charts good. And if that continues to be the case, teams are going to have a hard time, attacking the Steeler secondary and making big plays down the field. So one helps the other. I thought it was a tremendous second half performance. It doesn't hurt that your offense holds the ball on forever. I mean, I don't think the Texans even touched the ball just one time in the fourth quarter, 3 3-and-outs and an interception. That's how you limit another team.
All right, guys, we're going to take one more break. We do have to talk about Ben Roethlisberger and that Steelers offense. Also, Eric Ebron really getting involved this week as well. So we will be right back.
Ben Roethlisberger becomes the all-time Steeler by stepping onto the field in this instance.
He beat Webby.
It's such an honor to be, up there with that name with Mike Webster. Obviously, what he meant for this franchise. the Hall of Famer, the person, and you know, we all know the story, but what he did, you know, he's Iron Mike for a reason. They're never going to call me Iron Ben. I get that, because there's only one Iron Mike, and I'm just humbled and honored to be in the same category as him. I don't want to, it's not like I passed him. I just feel like I joined him today.
All right, a special day for Ben Roethlisberger on Sunday here at Heinz Field against the Texans, passing Mike Webster for the franchise record for games played. And also the Steelers are 3-0, only the 9th time they have done so in team history. And guys, let's talk about Big Ben. Merril, he always takes Wednesdays off, but this past Wednesday, Ben said he really needed to clean up his footwork. He worked on that on the side, not participating with the team. So what did you see from number 7 yesterday?
Well, like I mentioned, I thought his the second half of the Texan game and the fourth quarter, he was absolutely incredible. Those RPOs that he threw in the third and one, the fourth and one, the alert that he had. I mean, he threw one, I think it was in the second half, across his body too. That was like, I'm just saying this from a player perspective. If you ever wanted to know, is my arm better? I mean, that was like a 21-year-old throw. But, you know, to know him like I do, to see how he's playing, all that he's done, I just think he's a great story of accountability. He's turned into an incredible leader. The Steelers organization is completely different when number 7 is in the lineup. That's Captain Obvious. But to see him playing the way he's playing right now, with all the work that he has done, I could not be happier for him.
Arthur, I don't want to say it, but it does feel like if this was last year without Ben Roethlisberger, this is not one of those games the Steelers would have been able to pull out of. And Merril said, due to his play, especially in the second half, the fourth quarter in particular, and the RPOs. What are you seeing from number 7?
Hey, first off, you're absolutely right. I think the past 2 games, this one and the one against the Broncos, if 7's not out there, I don't see, you know, the team being able to have the success that they were able to have. But the thing that I'm enjoying most about 7 being back is just seeing his toughness. How many times in these first couple of games have we seen bodies around him, guys, you know, right in his face, and he's stepping into throws and throwing absolute dimes? To me, that's the thing that I'm just enjoying the most, because we know, okay, when he's healthy, he can hit any throw that he needs to make. We know that. And all reports going into the season were that he was healthy. But to see him after a year away from the game, still not bat an eye or shy away from any contact when these big 300-pounders are coming at him, I mean, to me, that's the thing that I'm loving the most right now.
All right, Pomp, we saw Eric Ebron getting his first touchdown. That is now the 51st player that Ben Roethlisberger has thrown a touchdown to through his career. The fact that Ebron promised he was going to get involved, Coach Tomlin told us to keep watching. What did you like from that tight end?
I just like the developing relationship that we're starting to see, and involving both of those guys, Vance McDonald as well, Missy. Good downfield. Vance was outstanding down the field as part of the extension offensive line. After he makes catches, he's involved. As far as Roethlisberger, though, I mean, he loves to distribute the football to different people, and I like seeing that because it makes it very difficult on other defenses to do that. You know, through 3 games, I think it's 7 touchdowns, 1 interception. If you limit the mistakes, and I know he's his own worst critic. He said he's going to get better, and I believe he will, but he doesn't even have to get better. He can just – these kind of numbers, a 102 passer rating through 3 games, I think that would be a career high if he maintained it throughout the course of the season. If he does that in conjunction with this defense being as good as it is, I think it's going to be awfully difficult to take the Steelers down week to week. They will lose games because it's the NFL, and everyone will, just the nature of the beast. But I think they're going to be a tough out for anyone at any part of this season or postseason.
All right, guys, 2 injuries we will have to keep an eye on. Derek Watt was not able to finish the game. He's dealing with a hamstring. Coach Tomlin also said Deontay Johnson is in the concussion protocol. Merril, it was kind of exciting to start seeing more and more of Derek Watt on offense. We saw the special teams. How big of a loss is this for the Steelers if he's not able to go this week?
Well, it's hard to say, Missy. I would say this, and I say that because so many people have stepped up and learned to, we want to go back and pick at what last year did for you. It did that. It helped you develop people and get used to stepping in when people go out. When you lose the type of people and as many people, it pays dividends when this happens. You don't ever want it to happen, but I think the experience they had last year will help them no matter who goes down. You just don't hope it isn't all the people that went down last year, because I don't think I've ever seen that in the NFL with any team. But I think last year's experience will help them overcome these type of setbacks, a guy here and a guy there on occasion.
Arthur, in terms of Deontay Johnson not being able to play much in the game, we saw a lot of Ray McLeod in terms of special teams. What have you seen from him so far, being a chance to have a lot of opportunities yesterday?
Yeah, Ray McLeod is lightning in a bottle. You see every time he gets the ball right now as a return man, it's exciting. You see the bursts. He has a different gear. And, I mean, this was going on with him when he was in Buffalo as well. But he presents that type of speed. That's the thing that makes him so unique. So even though if Deontay Johnson isn't able to go, you lose the elusiveness that Deontay plays with. But from just a flat-out speed standpoint, Ray is going to bring a whole nother element to the game in that regard. So that's why I think that from a special team standpoint, it wasn't that big of a loss. But obviously from an offensive standpoint, you want Deontay out there because what he does with the ball in his hands, whether it's, as a reverse screen, downfield, I mean, he's so versatile and so dynamic with the ball, it's hard to replicate that.
Yeah, Bob, I was going to say we don't know what's going to happen with Deontay Johnson or Derek Watt. Coach Tomlin has his press conference tomorrow. We should learn some more. Players start practice on Wednesday. But without Deontay Johnson there, we've talked about this wide receiver group and how special but different each guy is. We did see a little bit more of Chase Claypool. What did you like overall from that group yesterday without Deontay?
Well, first of all, I think those four, if you had Deontay Johnson in there, if he's healthy, along with Juju Smith-Schuster, Washington, and Claypool emerging as he has, I mean, that's as good a four as you're going to get, I think, in terms of depth. Claypool just, every week he shows me stuff that makes me think that was the right pick. There was some debate about Dobbins or Claypool, but obviously they like their wide receivers and they utilize them when they get here. So I think Juju Smith-Schuster is the undertold story so far, though, Missy. He's one of these guys. He had a lot to play for this year. He's enjoying it. He's contributing in every way possible. 3 touchdowns from the slot. I think that's the most of anyone from the slot, and that equals his season high from last season. But he's also very involved in the run blocking game. He's doing a lot of great stuff out there, and this is a big year for him, as it is for a lot of these guys who are restricted and then soon to become unrestricted. They want to put up the performances, and he's done exactly that through 3 games.
All right, guys. Well, I appreciate you joining me once again. It was good to recap a Steelers win. So happy Victory Monday to all of you.
Victory!
Victory Monday, baby! Yeah.
There we go.
Pomp brought the goods. All right, well, we're going to go let Pomp enjoy some of that before he has to go to KDKA. Thanks so much for joining us here on the Extra Point presented by Microsoft Surface. We will be back here next week.